Am I the butthole for reporting my teacher and potentially getting him fired? My 16 female school requires us to keep our cameras on during the entire class. If we need to use the restroom, we are supposed to privately message our teacher and ask to leave. I have absolutely no issue with these rules, as I understand that online teaching is hard and you have to make sure everyone is attentive during classes. We also have this system where at the end of the week every student is emailed a Google document in which we are supposed to type out any problems we had with the classes during the week. For example, a teacher is favoring a student, etc. On Thursday, I had a math class which was taught by Mr. T. He's never really been very strict and had always seemed quite reserved and quiet. Of course, I've never been in a lesson with him outside of online school, so I can't really judge. During the class, I realized I had started my period. I privately messaged Mr. T asking if I could use the restroom. I waited for 10 minutes but he didn't reply, so I messaged him again, still no reply. By now I was getting extremely uncomfortable, so I texted him for the third time explaining I had started my period and I really had to go. He replies with this: "You should have planned better. Learn to control yourself." What? I can't control my period. I tried to explain that I couldn't, but he didn't respond. I got annoyed and switched to my camera anyways and left to the bathroom. Once I came back, I saw that he had kicked me out of the meeting. I later found out that he had written me for switching of my camera and I was given a warning. I was pissed. Since it was a Thursday, I received the Google Doc and I complained about Mr. T in it. Today, Tuesday, I found out, through my mother, who is also a teacher, that Mr. T is being investigated, as there have been multiple complaints about his behavior and mine was apparently the last straw. My dad, brother and few of my friends are calling me a butthole, as I could have just waited for a while instead of complaining and potentially making a man lose his job, especially during this time. I don't know, my feeling really guilty now. I don't want him to lose his job. Am I the butthole? Edit. Oh my god. This is post and its comments are such a relief. I've been stressing over his supposed firing for the entire day. Thanks to everyone who commented, really helped me. I've also sent this post to my dad and he hasn't responded yet. Your dad, brother, and friends, who I am assuming are also male, are the buttholes. I'm so effing tired of men thinking we can just hold in our period blood the way you can with your bladder. This is a grown-ass man teaching a class of kids that are probably half female. He should know the bare basics about menstruation and how to address if a female student is having an issue. You are not the butthole. If this was a long time coming and you were just the final straw, he should be fired. It blows my mind that someone can reach adulthood thinking a period can be held in. Like, WTF do they think the pads and tampons are for? Why would anyone buy that crap if we could just hold it in? It makes no sense. What the F do men learn in sex ed? I mean, I know American sex ed is pretty crafty, but do they not at the very least teach them what periods are? My husband said his maturation program was pretty much they got a stick of deodorant and reminded to shower, smiley face, and all the boys were jealous the girls got little baggies with stuff. Fortunately, for me, he grew up with sisters, so he knew more than he wanted to, I'm sure. Lol. I remember all the boys getting a balloon and no one would tell me why. This is hysterical/adorable. I'm not in touch with any of my dude friends from back then, or I'd ask. Lol. I assumed they were either being taught how to check their testicles for lumps or being taught how to feel up a boob. I just assumed the balloon was actually a condom. They got an actual balloon. Yep. An actual balloon. No helium, like they blew it up themselves or something. Then they carried them around for the rest of the day for some reason. Oh, dang, I assumed it was a condom too, and some kids just thought they were balloons. I'm pretty sure balloons are used in sex ed to teach about prostates, like the normal size and enlargement and all that, lol. Sometimes they use the balloon to talk about self-esteem and it gets inflated or deflated throughout the day. Could have been that? Maybe they weren't allowed to pass out condoms. Or maybe balloons were cheaper. You should reach out just so we know. I really need to know if it was being taught to feel a boob, smiley face. You unlocked my memory of blowing up said balloon, then setting it free in the schoolyard and sitting back to watch the head of year chasing it, desperately trying to capture it with his umbrella. Sorry, it wasn't a balloon, it was a condom. Did they also give them a banana or cucumber? Lamau. They were actual party balloons, not condoms, unfortunately, lol. I educated the crap out of my little brother. He even knew my favorite brand of pads as a kid. I even taught the boys in my 6th grade math class. I thought they were teasing but were genuinely interested when a pad fell out of my purse. You're welcome, mankind. I had horrible cramps in middle and high school. My brother learned to bring me a hot pad, chocolate, and water when I was at my worst to keep my grumpy to a minimum. A decade later, his now wife mentioned to me that she loves how he always brings her stuff on her period. My nephew and brother, they also know to leave me the F alone and just bring the stuff and leave laughing out loud, not the butthole at all. The fact that he had several complaints shows that he'd been the butthole before this incident. We sisters never get enough credit for all the training we give brothers. Would my brother be the guy my sister-in-law loves without a decade or so of nice boys don't do that coming from me? No. No, he wouldn't. Good job with your brother. Thanks, he's still your typical jerk younger brother, but not about feminine issues. I grew up with no sister. And I know it is uncontrollable. For many people, even controlling piss is difficult. There are things that body does without us being in control, like breathing. Thank goodness for my youngest son's school. 5th grade was the class. The principal taught the boys every year. He talked about the suddenly sprouting hair. Dreams. He included ways that girls' bodies change, including getting their period, and that they needed to be respectful. He also reiterated that anyone making jokes about periods, girls' bodies, being jerks, etc., would be a serious talk with him, and a repeat would mean in school detention. It was a Catholic school, so he literally put the fear of God into them about being disrespectful. I cracked the F up at this. I love when men are taught the truth about women's bodies and you just see that look of horror. My partner is well versed and not easily surprised or grossed out, ex-police, so he has a fantastic poker face. The one moment I saw that look of horror was when I delivered my placenta. He's never batted an eye, or seemed bothered at all. Even through birth, stood and watched the nurse stitch me up, changed pads, been peed on, surprise period on him more than once. Even held a bucket under my butt when I was projectile vomiting so hard I was convinced I was going to crap myself. But when he saw the midwife yanking on the umbilical cord like it was a pull cord, and the horrible thing flopped out, he was just pure shocked and speechless. I don't blame him, to be honest. It's huge and looks like an alien liver, but I was very pleased that I'd finally got him. That's one of the sweetest and most disgusting stories I've ever read. Honestly, not much grossed me out either, but seeing my placenta come out was nasty. I don't know what I describe it as, but it was a lot paler and vein than I expected for some reason. I think that or the cervix checks were the worst part of my labor. The actual birth was nothing compared to the cervix check pains. I literally was screaming, crying, and according to my now husband, the younger nurses were bitching about me be a whiny baby over it. Luckily, the two head nurses, day and night, I had that week were fantastic, and the old granny nurse got me an epidural the second I was allowed it to help with my cervix checks. I love her. You didn't make him lose his job. If it happens, he did it to himself. Definitely not the butthole. I remember the one time I unexpectedly got my period during lunch break, and I went to the male teacher I had after lunch to explain what happened and asked if I could go home to get clean underwear and pads, and arrived late in class, probably about 10 minutes late. We had a test that day, so I was really worried. Poor man went beet red, but he told me to go home and not worry about the test. I could stay after class to finish the test if I hadn't enough time after my return. Even though he was uncomfortable, he didn't say anything to make me feel bad, but he supported me, enabled me to take care of things, and made sure I could take my test. At the time, I was happy and relieved, but stories like this make me realize how lucky I actually was. Yeah, unfortunately, getting basic respect and understanding for uncontrollable bodily functions is lucky. I got mine in the middle of a class once, and my male teacher told me that I was irresponsible and should have used the bathroom before class instead of making out with my boyfriend. Just what every 14-year-old needs, to be slut-shamed and period-shamed at the same time. Great. Another teacher who should have been fired. Sorry that happened to you. I would have said something like, "Ah, you're one of those people," and just walked out anyway. This breaks my heart. I'm so sorry this happened to you. He really managed to do both at once. My second or third period, I didn't notice I started. This boy next to me? I didn't know him. He was very popular and funny, and I was very uncool. He fake dropped his pencil almost under my desk, leaned over and said, "You need to go to the nurse quietly." I had a stain on my skirt and hadn't known. I managed to get to the nurse and clean up, and I wasn't teased or bothered. Thanks, Tyler. What a sweet kid. His parents raised him right. I don't know how exactly to raise a boy like that, but I'm trying. I can't imagine my son not understanding periods. That would require me to fake modesty, and I'm way too punky for that nonsense. The world needs more Tylers. I'm saying. At least have the decency to clam up and let a girl take care of her business. You don't need to be an expert on menstruation to have basic empathy. I had a teacher in high school who announced at the beginning of the class that any girl who had any period-related issues whatsoever just had to say or drop him a note saying "I got to go," and he'd excuse us from the class with no further explanation needed or wanted. He was pretty awesome. This is why I always just let students go. I'd much rather they miss a little class time than have an accident. Sometimes I make them wait a little if it's a bad time, but if they make it clear they got to go now, they go. A kid ain't going to be learning crap while worrying about blood coming through their trousers, trying not to wet themselves, or holding in last night's kebab. Best let them miss a little so they can focus a lot. We had to do a swimming unit in gym in high school, and if we were on our periods, we could be excused with a note. We used to deliberately give the note to the male gym teacher because he would accept it, no questions asked. The female gym teacher would badger us about why we couldn't use a tampon. It was honestly more uncomfortable than having the other teacher know I was on my period. Yeah, totally. The concept of not letting children use the bathroom is so stupid. Obviously, it wouldn't work in a virtual setting, but if you trust the kid that little, send them to the bathroom with a classmate to wait outside. However, she's practically an adult. If she's on her period, she clearly has no choice. Op not the butthole. Your dad and bro should really take a biology class too, or just, be decent family members. P.S. Teach is obviously a dick, or you would have been the first complaint, not the last. Or contact the poster who had sons and remarried and gained stepdaughters, and after a complaint from the sons about pads being in the bathroom received a PowerPoint presentation on periods and ask them to forward on the presentation. Yes. Did you save that one? I didn't think to at the time, and I've wanted to send people back to it a bunch of times. I found it. I had to search to read it, totally worth it. Web link. All the men telling you about what your period is like and how you should handle it appropriately. Since they know from personal experience. It's so irritating how men just want to blame women for everything. The teacher is in trouble for his behavior, not because you did anything. Not the butthole. Teacher dad and bro sure are. It occurs to me that male teachers who work with adolescent girls should be required to take an in-service training on issues girls face. Not just the mechanics of periods, but the emotional aspects. For most girls, periods are sometimes stressful and embarrassing and uncomfortable. People might notice, and you might ruin your clothes. I'm full of admiration for those gutsy girls and women who have a matter-of-fact attitude. This is not universal. No girl wants to discuss this with her male teacher, and if it's necessary, then sensitivity is called for. I assumed most men know all this, but clearly not. Not the butthole misogynists who don't even know how menstruation works shouldn't be in charge of teenagers or children. Also, there would have been more straws for him later on anyways. The last one would have just been someone else's, and he may have done something far more harmful to them. Is it only men who are calling you an A? Maybe they also have no idea how menstruation works. Ask your dad if he would have preferred you be forced to bleed all to his floor, or those other children be forced to bleed on their chairs and floor because of this man. I don't even understand why a teacher wouldn't allow a student to use the bathroom, virtual learning or in class. Like, what's with the power trip of saying, no, you have to stay regardless of how uncomfortable you are to anyone, especially a minor student? If a student is abusing it, sure, bring it up with them/their parents, but it's ridiculous to not allow students to use the bathroom. How are you supposed to be learning if you can only concentrate how painfully full your bladder is or how much you are holding not to crap yourself? Small break and back to business is so much better than wait an hour feeling extremely uncomfortable. What I did in 2nd grade really made the teacher change her tune. She wouldn't let me go pee after lunch, and I really had to go. Doing the dance and all. She told me no and to sit down and wait for recess. So I sat down, flipped my dress up at the back, and peed all over that chair. There was so much it was like a waterfall. Teacher was mortified and started yelling at me, kids laughed at me, but I didn't care. I was reveling in that sweet relief of having an empty bladder. You're my new small child hero. I taught virtually from last March until now, and the number of students who would ask me in chat if they could leave to go to the restroom was mind-blowing. We didn't require students to have cameras on because the Chromebooks we gave them weren't very good, and I finally had to say, if you have to go, just message me and tell me that you're leaving. I may have not seen messages in chat if I'm in a breakout room with a different group or working on a document with a student. I said, just go and come back as quickly as you can. I mean, the only reason they have to ask when they're in person is for liability reasons, so that I know where they are if there's an emergency of some sort. If they're at home, it's not as we're going to have a fire drill. Other than students who have had behavior documentation that they can't be by themselves, I generally let them handle themselves until they abuse the privilege. The stupidest thing about a teacher telling a student no is that even in the military you are never supposed to tell someone no if they need to use the bathroom. You on watch and you need to go. They will find someone to relay you so you can go. You in training? Go right ahead, but be quick. A teacher has no right to tell a child to wait. Yeah, to be honest, such a weird thing to do. Students wouldn't even pay attention because they are uncomfortable. Not the butthole. I think it's just to instill a sense of awful, unrespectable authority so that kids will obey their teacher. You can't just get up and pee when you're at work as an adult. Was a common excuse as well, or at least that's what we got at my secondary school. Realistically, if you work at an office you can probably pee whenever. If you work in service jobs you're likely able to pee whenever, as long as you don't take the piss with it. I think it's a way of trying to reinforce the total authority of the teacher, whilst also cutting down on the work the teacher actually needs to do. How long ago did Jimmy go to the toilet? Has he been doing this often? Etc. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to be the first to know about Red Rabbit Reader's new videos. If you like our videos, please like them on YouTube and share them with your friends. We welcome your comments below. Press to start another of our videos.